104th Wolfdiver Sagas, a Helldivers 2 anthology. Narration created by Lumenaught.
Song 1. Song of Wrath. Written by Jovial. Redacted was born on Mars in the years shortly before the first contact with the Illuminate Scourge, coming of age to join the SEAF in time for the First Galactic War, but top marks in all classes picked Redacted out to be a Helldiver. Redacted was born to Redacted and Redacted in the year Redacted, learning like all good children how to use and maintain many types of firearms and other tools of democracy. During basic training, Redacted's parents were caught in the initial wave of terrorist activities performed by Cyberstan extremists. This left Redacted as a perfect candidate for the Record Expunged project headed by Dr. Redacted and General Redacted. The project heavily modified its candidates with minor gene editing and cybernetic augmentation, all based off experimental research and technology acquired from the Illuminate project labs, raided in the year Redacted on Record Expunged. With the intention of creating superior psionic soldiers, it was a failure on most candidates. There was, however, successful implementation of Record Expunged on 3 suitable candidates. Redacted, later known as alias Jovial. Redacted, later known as alias Brady. Redacted, later known as alias Astriath. These candidates, changed by the project, formed the elite task group, codenamed Squad Spearhead. Squad Spearhead was used in many campaigns including Redacted, aided in the defense of Super-Earth, and the destruction of the terrifying siege mech and the destruction of the Illuminate Great Eye. After the end of the First Galactic War, Squad Spearhead was placed into cryogenic stasis where they remained for over 100 years. With the sudden outbreak of the Terminid infestation, Squad Spearhead was reactivated and the process to bring each member back from a century of cryosleep began. The first member to awaken was Redacted alias Brady, who after confirming through multiple tests and examinations was ready, left immediately to stem the tide of the threat to our democracy. Shortly afterwards, Redacted alias Jovial and Redacted alias Astriath followed to join up, reforming Squad Spearhead. The automaton surprise attack left Super-Earth with a need for more divers on the galactic western front. Squad Spearhead were some of the first to respond. When Malavilan Creek came under heavy attack, Squad Spearhead was on the ground escorting civilians to safety through some of the heaviest fighting seen up to that point. When Malavilan Creek fell, Squad Spearhead was cut off and unable to extract from the planet. All of Squad Spearhead was listed as MIA. Months later there would be reports of Redacted alias Jovial spotted on the galactic eastern edge, hunting chargers. The same time it is believed the Chaos Divers had begun a recruitment campaign and was harvesting charger legs for rations. Redacted alias Jovial went underground and remained out of any reported activity until the near completion of the DSS, where Redacted alias Jovial was discovered near Easier Pass. Joining the operations of the 104th Wolfdiver Battalion, operating under what is believed to be their Lieutenant Lone of the 3rd Division. A specialized unit focused on completion of objectives without other Helldiver support. Jovial, the Sword Bearer, the 23rd of December, 2024, 12:52 p.m. Most recent reports suggest that Redacted alias Jovial is a part of the unit assigned directly to the commander of the battalion, believed to be dedicated to the protection and support of the commander when on the ground, and an elite fighting force when deployed on other missions. This remains unclear, however, and further investigation is under consideration. During combat against the re-emerging Illuminate on Ander, alias Jovial was declared KIA after being cut in two by an Illuminate Tesla tower. No body was found at the site, leaving any certainty about their fate unknown. I'm alive, I remain in the 104th, and I currently live off of a life support system implanted by the scientists of the 52nd Hound Company. They call me 1C for RUS, I'll stick with it. I am here to fight for the people and the future. I still have contacts in the Ministry of Defense. Hopefully if they pulled through this note has been added. They said leaving me dead and missing was for the best, something about the Ministry of Truth rounding up the remaining scions to make some sort of special unit. I'll stick to doing my own thing. Thanks. End transcript.
Song 2. Qvksylver. Written by Jarl. At the age of 16, the Jarl was touring a super destroyer when the Aesir Pass training facility was attacked. After the Helldiver stationed on the destroyed Dove, the Jarl commandeered the destroyer arsenal and Hell pod, diving into the center of the action, destroying a factory strider with his Hell pod. He fought his way through the blood and oil of the training facility to reach his two younger twin siblings, reaching through the wreckage of a burning exosuit to save his two younger twin siblings, 12, a brother and sister. He picked a dropped HMG and wielded it hip-fired with his left hand while leading his younger siblings with his right. He was forced to drop the HMG when an automaton commissar approached with a laser blade. Shielding his younger siblings, he caught the blade, losing his left thumb and eye in the process, and held it until a Helldiver shot the commissar. That Helldiver was his father. The family trudged to the final pelican, leaving the facility. Tragically, while his father was throwing a final stratagem, a rocket from a devastator killed his father and younger brother. Taking his younger sister in one arm and his father's senator in the other, the Jarl kicked the stratagem beacon away and dove into the back of the pelican. After the battle, the Jarl was patched up and granted rank of Helldiver cadet even without any formal training. He was given command of his father's destroyer, renaming it to the SIS Sword of Conquest. This is when he was first given the title of Jarl, also inheriting it from his father, who was Jarl of their clan. This is also the first time he was referred to by the moniker Qvksylver. The crew other destroyer he was touring said he jumped into action like Qvksylver, but the audio was garbled. The Jarl is almost completely unreserved until he gets really drunk, that he becomes super stoic. For about 3 minutes. He often regales members of the battalion with myths and stories he has learned. Despite his unreserved nature, he's a cunning and intelligent person, and a decent statistician. He relies on his division commanders to deal with certain aspects of the battalion. The Jarl would give his life for any member of his battalion, and would wait in Odin's hall for each and every one of them. The Jarl continued his raids on bot territory, almost always alone, eventually catching the elusive Eye of John Helldiver, whom he later briefly trained under after the Aesir Pass reclaim Aten of June 11th. Once Aesir Pass was once again ravaged by the automatons, creating more displacers of the Jarl's age, he went on to form the 104th Wolfdivers Battalion. He has an extensive network of scrappers that comb planets we raid for bot scrap. Automaton tanks are about 100 tons of scrap steel. We have a deal with the Deep Mantle Forge, we get 250 to 500 per ton. That's around 50,000 per tank, walkers are even more. That's why our war chest is so full, how we can afford equipment, and to have the merc divers on retainer. The wolf divers gain our wealth through the smelting of automaton scrap into usable steel. We sell it ton by ton. Before this, we had a contact within the Deep Mantle Forge complex on Clarel, however that not only meant that our production was bottlenecked, but also that our contact took a 25% cut. As you know, Nidavellir is the realm of the dwarfs. The dwarfs were great and renowned craftsmen from our ancestral stories. It seemed only right to name the Great Wolfdiver Forge complex after their home. In fact, we did not fully craft the complex on our own. It was found by a 2nd Division scouting party during the last battle on Fenrir 3. It was built by our ancestors, who discovered and named Fenrir 3. During the exploration of the old complex, we discovered a method of fusing molten steel to a hardened form of E710 to form a harder alloy, so not only can we smelt scrap into usable steel to use or sell, but we can also create and use this new alloy to reinforce our weapons, armor, and vehicles. It will also act as the Wolfdiver ship bay and bug scouting outpost, but those purposes are less important.
Song 3. Precursor of Freedom. Written by Voidwise. The first natural memory felt, one that hadn't been implanted upon regeneration from cryosleep, was the body-rattling right-sided shift to the loading bay as the cryochamber violently vented its capped gas canisters. The doors slide open with ferocity, my feet unclip from the cryochamber's housing, and I take a step forward into the loading bay, where Shipmaster Nazareno and Service Technician Lindgren immediately halt their conversation and stand at attention. My boots thump onto the floor, my body thaws instantly due to the Permacura stimulants injected from my suit, and my helmet visual feed flickers into blue-lit existence before the reticle over my right eye switches to its red tactical display. As I step past the ship staff, I enter the army and grab my designated kit, an ARC-12 Blitzer, plus 15 Loyalist, and as many G-123 thermite grenades that will fit on my belt. I sling my primary weapon to my left hip like a sword of old, and my sidearm sits comfortably on my right thigh in the universal holster. I turn towards the bridge and am greeted by the clacking of keyboards as the technicians to my right frantically ready the logistics needed to display the galaxy map, where Democracy Officer Burnklint stands at ease. He looks towards me as my footsteps echo throughout the bridge and announces, "The Blitz Divers battle for freedom. Let us decide where to enter the fray." I take control of the terminal on the base of the holographic galactic war table and navigate to the automaton front, where my original was born, Mars-Tia. The liberation of Mars-Tia has been at a standstill for some time, with most of the core fighting on the Terminid front, and the brave few that fight against the automaton horde being spread too thinly across such a large canvas of battle. Still, I fight to retake my original's claimed homeworld, after Super Earth had relocated the clone processing facility there during the 100-year armistice. An SOS beacon flares into view on the screen. A cadet deployed with a fleet admiral locked in a fierce battle during what should have been a routine patrol has clearly devolved into an outright skirmish. I send them notification that my ship is aligning with their orbit, and I march towards the Hellpod bay as a new set of Hellpods rotate into position and lock with a resounding thunk. I take one last look at the bridge, my back to the Hellpod. This may be the last time this body may stand on this deck, but there's reassurance that the next body will still be my own. The same memories, the same pains, the same urge. Oil will be spilled. I lurch backwards, my feet locking into the footholds in the Hellpod to the left of the bridge window. Within a moment, I'm pulled down into the Hellpod itself as the buckling tightens itself around my legs to secure me during the drop. The stratagem display illuminates the inside of the pod as I select the stratagems that will be of most use to me and the two Helldivers locked in combat, Orbital Laser, Eagle Airstrike, Shield Backpack, and Quasar Cannon, alongside an experimental infusion booster to aid us in the fight. Before I drop, I raise my right fist in salute to those who have died, those who will die, and those yet to feel the grip of death. 3 words are uttered from this new body, Libertatem Antimortis. And then the Hellpod is dropped into the fray.
Song 4. Aegis of Justice. Written by Rígrsson. Physical description. The epitome of average. Rígrsson does not seem to possess any inherent vastness of strength, though does seem to carry enough of it to handle the weaponry he must. Standing at 6 feet 4 inches, with long hair of a dark brown with a neat mustache and goatee, the only prevalent traits being the various scars of battle won over the years. Personality. Seeming to pride his wit over his strength, shown over the fact he tends to hoard knowledge of the history of the old world, as well as the small moments of communion before every dive to the gods of the ancestors. Believing the gods to be watchful over his every action, it shows in his pride and courage, and willingness to be bold, though never reckless. Background. Rígrsson hails from the planet of Vidarr, a homeland he will often speak as blessed with the beauty of nature, something he has always enjoyed in his youth, and yet does to this day whenever time in the field permits a chance to gaze upon the lands he walks. Even from child, he would have a grand fascination of lore and history, spending much of his time reading of heroes, battles fought, and history long forgot by many citizens of Super Earth. Growing up to one day join the SAF as many others would, he fell victim to the many automaton attacks on his native home, one such attack being the very one that cast him to Super Earth due to sustained injury. A hatred developed to those that claimed his home, but recovery condemned him to extended rest, finding his solace in the many libraries of Super Earth. It is here that the knowledge of the ancestral gods became known to him, along with the eventual rise of the Wolfdivers who claimed to venerate such ancestral deities. With the recovery completed, Rígrsson made his venture once more to the vast expanses of space where the automaton held their iron grasp. Pledging his service to the children of the fallen Aesir Pass, he is motivated by two things: vengeance for Martale and reverence to the gods. His wit proves himself useful when it comes to strategy and logistics, often willing to remain adaptable, though he will often be seen in the field with a self-maintained guard dog drone, dubbed his Raven, named Retlaety, Old Norse for justice. Feeling himself primarily inspired by the war god of oaths and justice Tyr, he considers himself to be the arbiter of justice and judgment upon the Tinkin terror that risks the lives of the innocent, though can be heard invoking the other gods too, when he feels he requires their guidance. In service, he offers his wit for strategy, but always and ever will he cherish the sharing of the vast knowledge of old he has learnt, or the performance of those ancient rites, to bestow whatever venerated might the gods deem him and his companions worthy of.
Song 5. Lady of the Constitution. Written by Caitlin "Cat" O'Donnell. Born on Malavelan to a military family, her father being a retired helldiver. Her family's Scottish heritage had a spirit for exploring and finding new homes, were part of the first round of colonists to settle the planet and felt a strong attachment to the somewhat hostile planet. Cat would help on her parents' homestead and play out in the fields even during the ion storms. This led to her becoming great at hunting she'd do with her father, and after her 16th, she got her Constitution rifle she'd take everywhere she went. She eventually applied for boot camp, as the colony had become fully integrated and the first Malavelan Creek Helldiver Division was being formed. Boot camp was brutal as the camp was staffed by many former Helldivers, who had years of combat experience fighting off pirates and rebels. She passed with flying colors as an anti-tank specialist, but before the division got its destroyers, the planet was suddenly and deliberately attacked by the automatons in their surprised return to the galaxy. With her fellow Helldivers, she took up the defense of her planet, using whatever they had to fight off the hordes of armored vehicles, including barely functional anti-tank missile launchers and rail guns. The first battle was an absolute bloodbath, her division only escaping due to the Honor Guard's sacrifice. She was elevated to a position of command in the division for her actions, leading the division's Tank Hunter Corps, which had taken out over 300 tanks over the course of the battle. On the battle to retake Draupnir, she made a scathing report on the quality of anti-tank weapons at the time, one excerpt saying, "I'd be better off hiding them with me non-existent dick," along with other fiery criticisms of the state of the SCAF's anti-tank weapons. However, once the weapons had been improved, the campaign to retake the creek had made ground. Touching back down on the darkened planet, she led countless missions, taking out tanks and bases from long range with the Spear's now fixed targeting system. However, the early success proved a fluke as the automation's surprise deployments of heavier and more dangerous units, along with increased ion storms, grounded the Liberation to a halt. During a retreat, Cat was using a railgun to hold the line for retreating Helldivers. She had been fighting a hulk that had gotten close, and in an act of desperation, she charged the railgun as high as it could go, but the railgun's power supply had detonated, destroying her right arm, but destroying the protective plate on the front of the hulk, revealing what lays inside the infernal monster. But she never says what she saw. Believed dead, she was left behind as the entire first Malavelan Creek Helldivers was wiped out. She was found surviving in the wreckage of a destroyer by members of the 104th after the final liberation of the creek. Returning to service, she received a bionic arm and received the status of Steeled Veteran, returning to duty, making sure all automaton vehicles are reclassified as coffins for those steel bastards. Remember the creek, never forget.
Song 6. The Viking Engineer. Written by Vikingr Gunnulf. Vikingr Gunnulf was born on Aesir Pass, like most of the 104th Battalion. At the tender age of 8, his world was turned upside down when the automatons invaded. Through blood, sweat, and tears, he survived, but lost all his family except his grandfather. His grandfather, a spry and healthy 96-year-old retired Helldiver death captain of an old and now disbanded battalion, fought valiantly with his trusty R-2124 Constitution, killing several bots. After 2 hours of running, they made it to an evacuation point. However, their ordeal was far from over. The super destroyer they boarded had stowaway bots, leading to a hijacking attempt that crash-landed them on a bug-infested world. In the chaos of evacuation, Vikingr lost his grandfather, with only his name tag, reading Odin Rimsbane, the rest too bloody to read, left in his possession. As he looked out the viewport of the dropship, holding the tags, he was filled with rage and determination to join the Helldivers and avenge his home world and his grandfather. Years later, at the age of 18, Vikingr enlisted in the Helldivers. He had trained himself to become a hulking 6 feet 6 inches muscular tank of a human. After earning his cape, he was sent on mission after mission. At the age of 23, he learned about the 104th Wolfdivers Battalion from his home world and sought them out, eager to soon become their fellow Wolfdiver and fight alongside his war family. Now a year later, during one of his recruitment missions with the 8th Division on the bug-infested planet Heath, Vikingr was paired with a trio from the 8th. Unfortunately, what was planned as an easy drop quickly turned into a nightmare. Their task was simple: activate the oil pumps, guard the tanker while it filled, and then evacuate. But as soon as they landed, they were swarmed by waves of bugs, far more than the intelligence reports had suggested. The ground trembled under the sheer number of enemies, making every step a battle for survival. Despite their heavy armor and advanced weaponry, the relentless assault took a toll on Vikingr and his team. The mission that was supposed to be straightforward turned into a desperate fight for their lives, testing their skills and resolve to the limit. Vikingr's creativity and strategic mind were put to the ultimate test as he devised clever traps and tactics to fend off the endless waves. His kind heart shone through as he went out of his way to help his comrades, lifting them up both physically and morally when they were down. However, he watched in horror as his soon-to-be war brothers fell one by one. The bug elites, with their formidable strength and speed, tore through the team, while hundreds of smaller bugs swarmed over those who ran out of ammo. The only reason Vikingr survived was that he fell into a deep canyon, but the fall knocked him unconscious for a while. When he woke up, he was startled by a large husky-like breed of dog, nearly twice the size of a common wolf from ancient Earth and a super-Earth working animal breed, licking his face. Startled, he jolted upright only to find the creature, named Rígrsson as seen on her collar, looking starved and battered, with several scars on her side. After assessing his surroundings, he realized he was in a walker graveyard. Vikingr made a camp in a small cave in the West Canyon wall and took some rations out of his pack to give to Rígrsson. While exploring the area, something caught his eye: a semi-working walker. Though it was missing some parts, such as both arms and one of the hydraulics on the right leg, Vikingr saw potential. With about 45 scrap walkers around, there were more than enough parts to fix and even modify it. The discovery filled him with a renewed sense of hope and excitement. Over the next several days, Vikingr and Rígrsson worked tirelessly. Vikingr scavenged the graveyard for parts, using his engineering skills to repair and enhance the walker. He managed to fashion new arms and replace the damaged hydraulic, even adding a few modifications to improve its combat capabilities. Rígrsson, despite her initial weakened state, proved to be an invaluable companion, alerting Vikingr to potential dangers and keeping watch over their makeshift camp. 5:42 p.m. Surviving in the canyon was a relentless challenge. Vikingr's determination never wavered as he rationed his supplies carefully, supplementing them with whatever he could find in the surrounding area. He hunted small game and foraged for edible plants, using his survival skills to keep both himself and Rígrsson nourished. During the nights, he would sit by the fire, talking to Rígrsson as if she could understand every word, sharing his plans and dreams of reuniting with his battalion. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between Vikingr and Rígrsson grew stronger. The once starved and battered dog transformed into a loyal and fierce protector, always by his side. Her presence was a constant source of comfort and motivation for Vikingr, reminding him that he was not alone in this desolate place. Together, they explored the depths of the canyon, discovering more hidden treasures and useful equipment among the wreckage. Finally, after countless hours of hard work, the walker was ready. Vikingr had not only repaired the machine but also outfitted it with additional armor plating and weapons scavenged from the wrecks. The walker, now a formidable weapon, proved to be a game-changer. Vikingr and Rígrsson moved through the canyon with newfound confidence, decimating any bug that crossed their path. The walker's powerful weapons and Vikingr's strategic mind made them an unstoppable duo. However, there was one small problem, fitting both Vikingr and Rígrsson into the cockpit. The cockpit, designed for one person, was already a tight squeeze for Vikingr's hulking 6 feet 6 inches frame, let alone a large husky-like dog nearly twice the size of a common wolf. "Alright, Rígrsson, let's see how we're going to make this work," Vikingr muttered, looking at the cramped cockpit. Rígrsson wagged her tail, seemingly unfazed by the challenge. Vikingr attempted to climb in first, squeezing his broad shoulders through the narrow opening. Once he was in, he patted the seat next to him. "Come on, girl. In you go." Rígrsson eagerly jumped up, trying to find a comfortable spot. Unfortunately, her large size made it nearly impossible. She ended up sprawled across Vikingr's lap, her head resting on the control panel. "This isn't going to work," Vikingr said with a chuckle, trying to adjust himself without disturbing Rígrsson. He pushed her gently, attempting to create more space. Rígrsson responded by shifting her weight, but it only made things worse. Her paw hit a button on the control panel, causing the walker to lurch forward. "Whoa, easy there. We're not ready to start yet," Vikingr laughed, quickly regaining control of the walker. After scavenging and repairing the walker, Vikingr faced the daunting task of getting the 28-ton behemoth out of the narrow canyon. The first step was to ensure the walker was fully operational. He meticulously checked every system, from the hydraulics to the power core, ensuring there were no malfunctions. Rígrsson stayed alert, keeping watch for any potential threats. Vikingr decided to use a combination of the walker's immense strength and the natural terrain to his advantage. He identified a series of ledges and rock formations that could serve as makeshift ramps. Using the walker's powerful servos, he began the arduous process of climbing out of the canyon. Each step had to be calculated and precise, as one wrong move could spell disaster. With Rígrsson guiding and encouraging him, Vikingr maneuvered the walker up the steep incline. There were moments when the walker's legs struggled to find purchase on the loose gravel, but Vikingr's steady hand on the controls and his strategic mind kept them moving forward. It was a slow and grueling process, but Vikingr's determination never wavered. At one particularly challenging point, the walker's right leg slipped, causing the entire machine to teeter dangerously close to the edge. Vikingr's heart raced as he fought to regain control. Rígrsson barked, sensing the urgency. With a burst of adrenaline, Vikingr managed to stabilize the walker, narrowly avoiding a catastrophic fall. He took a deep breath, calming his nerves, and continued the ascent with even greater caution. Hours passed, but Vikingr and Rígrsson finally emerged from the canyon, greeted by the vast and hostile landscape beyond. The journey to the deactivated SOS beacon was still fraught with danger, but Vikingr felt a renewed sense of hope and determination. The bond between him and Rígrsson grew stronger with each passing mile, their trust in each other unwavering. As they pressed on, Vikingr encountered numerous obstacles. Bug nests dotted the landscape, each one a potential ambush. Using the walker's advanced sensors and weaponry, Vikingr devised clever tactics to navigate through or around these nests, minimizing direct confrontations whenever possible. He set traps and used the environment to his advantage, always staying one step ahead of the relentless bugs. Despite the constant threats, Vikingr found moments of respite and camaraderie with Rígrsson. During breaks, he would share stories of his training and his grandfather's heroic deeds. Rígrsson, ever the attentive listener, would wag her tail and nuzzle him, providing comfort and companionship. Finally, after several grueling days of navigating treacherous terrain and battling countless enemies, Vikingr and Rígrsson reached the deactivated SOS beacon. Activating it, they sent out a distress signal, hoping for rescue. As they waited, Vikingr reflected on their journey and the unbreakable bond he had formed with Rígrsson. They had faced insurmountable odds and emerged stronger together, ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead.
Song 7. Mother of Judgement. Written by Vidarr Strongback. Originally Weaver Ogannon, he and his family lived a relatively quiet life on the planet of Tristram, unconcerned with most serious matters. This all changed the day of the wretched descent, when Tristram was attacked on two fronts by both automatons and terminids. Though the planet avoided an unstoppable swath of destruction by both forces being just as hostile to one another as they were to the denizens, Tristram saw an unprecedented amount of devastation and slaughter in their wake. Ground forces could only barely hold them back, and for every decisive victory they gained, there was also a crushing defeat. It wasn't until the arrival of 3 different Helldiver divisions that the SEAF finally began making good headway against the dual assault, and after a long and bloody campaign, Tristram was rightfully reclaimed for Super Earth. Unfortunately, the destruction had scarred the people just as much as it had scarred the land, and many families no longer saw it as a safe home, and left as refugees. The Ogannon family was one such example, and chose to immigrate to Aesir Pass, particularly after being relieved from hiding by a Wolfdiver's squad and seeing the planet's guardians in action. The Ogannons took quickly to adopt the culture of Aesir Pass and found new happy lives there. Weaver's father was so taken in particularly that when Weaver came of age, his father gave him the new title Strongback in the traditions of old Vikingr names, inspired by the strength he had seen him gain over the years. His increasing strength was no coincidence, however. In the aftermath of their homeworld's near destruction, Weaver began tempering his fear and trauma to replace it with determination and hatred. He began training his body and his mind so that he'd never be unprepared for such a threat again, hoping to eventually put himself to the test with gun in hand and Super Earth at his back. Before joining the SEAF, he also changed his name to Vidarr, inspired by both the god of vengeance and a local mispronunciation of his name. He passed the SEAF training handily, and even went the extra mile to earn chaplain qualifications, ready to pass the wisdom of Odin to fellow soldiers who needed guidance. When Aesir Pass was attacked by automatons and the need for more additions to the 104th grew, he found it easy to make it in, now more ready than ever to exact his revenge. Fellow Wolfdivers speak both to his fury and his calm on the battlefield. He seeks out foes with a furious zeal, holding a heavily assaulted position even if it means delaying objectives as he loudly proclaims the names of the gods, while elsewhere he maintains a composed demeanor, appearing almost furtive around those he is unfamiliar with while being warm and welcoming to those he calls friend. It is unknown what truly goes on in Vidarr's mind, if he has truly found peace at this point and feigns his old rage to inspire his comrades, or if the rage is all that's left and he simply maintains a shallow calm before the bloody storm. While he despises automatons like all from the pass, he also maintains a special hatred for terminids for what they did to Tristram, and thus is one of the first Wolfdivers to volunteer when other divisions ask for support in pushing back their front.
Song 8. Fenrir. Written by SIlas. I spent my days in the factories, a mechanic repairing tanks, guns, anything that could keep the war machine turning. When the war ended, so did my purpose. The silence that followed was torturing. I became numb to everything, desperate for something to fill the void. That's when he showed up. The Helldiver. He swaggered in like he was untouchable, boasting about his missions, his heroism. His arrogance was mind-numbing. I couldn't stand it. I shot him down. The crash was brutal, his car slamming into a wall, breaking apart in a fiery explosion. When he stumbled out of the wreckage, his face twisted in shock, I could see the fear in his eyes. But there was no mercy in me. I walked toward him, hearing his shallow breaths, his desperate cries. He begged for his life, pleaded to be spared. But I didn't care. Not anymore. With a coldness that felt abnormal, I stabbed him. The moment his life drained out of him was the moment I realized something about myself. I didn't just kill him. I killed whatever part of me still felt human. I took his gear, stripped him of his pride, left him in the dirt. And then I turned away without a second thought. I spent months building my own ship alone. With nothing but the memory of that moment, I ended a man's life to fuel me. When it was ready, I took off. But the universe isn't kind to those who think they can outrun their darkness. He was a son of Thor. I tried to escape, but he shredded my ship to pieces with one hit with his mighty hammer, and I crash-landed on a god-forsaken planet. Loki saw what happened, and with him and his brother being natural enemies, he decided to help me. He found me with a large hole in my torso, my nose missing, and missing both my arms. He saw I was still barely holding on to life, so he chose to heal me. He brought me to the Wolfdivers where I became a ninth. They gave me purpose again, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't deserve it. Not after what I did. I also joined a regiment known as the Helldivers. In there I found someone to help me. Their name was Obsidian and Jovial. It was a nice place to be since my boss the Oracle was already there. The division's name was the Steel Titans. The blood on my hands still scars me to this day. I wonder if I'm still the same person I was before that day. Or if I've become something darker. I now know I owe Loki my life and follow in a lot of his footsteps. When at either of my division's base camps, I spend my time messing with my fellow mates just like the god of mischief himself.
This has been 104th Wolfdiver Sagas, a Helldivers 2 anthology. Narration created by Lumenaught. I do not hold or own any rights to the Helldivers franchise. This has been a non-profit creation. Please donate to the Arrowhead-approved Save the Children charity organization. The narrator hopes you have enjoyed this program.